I live alone in Tokyo, on the outer edge of Naruma Ward. It's about a 15-minute walk from the station. The neighborhood feels left behind. Old wooden houses, narrow streets, vending machines that hum too loudly at night. There's a small shrine tucked between two apartment blocks, and a Lawson that closes at midnight. Last autumn, I moved into a two-story wooden apartment building, nearly 40 years old. The rent was suspiciously cheap. Second floor, corner unit. 6 tatami mat room, small kitchen, unit bath. The tatami had been replaced recently, but the closet, the ashiar, was old. The sliding fusuma doors didn't quite align. No matter how I shut them, there was always a thin vertical gap. During the viewing, I casually asked the real estate agent if anything had happened there. He smiled in that practiced way and said, "Nothing in particular. The previous tenant just left suddenly, went back to their family home." I didn't press further. The first week was normal. Then I started waking up at the same time every night. 2:40 a.m. exactly. No alarm set. No noise outside. I would simply open my eyes, as if someone had called my name. And every time, without thinking, I would look toward the closet. The gap between the fusuma showed nothing but darkness. Still, I had the distinct feeling that something was inside. Not moving. Just present. I told myself it was stress. Work had been exhausting. The traffic from Kanana Road never truly stops. Old buildings make old noises. One night, coming back from the convenience store, I ran into an elderly woman who lived next door. She wore an apron, like she'd just finished washing dishes. After I greeted her, she stared at me for a few seconds and said quietly, "2:40, isn't it?" I felt my stomach drop. "What is?" She gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. "Never mind. Just don't open the closet at night." She went inside before I could ask anything else. After that, the waking felt different. Each night at 2:40, the gap in the closet door seemed slightly wider. Just by millimeters. I couldn't prove it. During the day, it looked normal. But at night, the darkness inside felt closer. Thicker. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to empty the closet completely. Futon, old boxes, everything out. Inside, there was nothing unusual at first glance. Just wooden boards and the back wall. But on that wall, faintly visible in the grain, was a stain. It resembled a person sitting in seiza, head slightly bowed, narrow shoulders. I laughed at myself and took out my phone to photograph it. The screen flickered black for a second. When it came back, everything seemed normal. But later, in my photo gallery, there was one image I didn't remember taking. Almost entirely black. When I increased the brightness, I could make out what looked like a pale face close to the camera. Too close. As if it were peering out from inside the closet toward me. The eyes and mouth were faint, but they were there. I deleted it immediately. From the trash folder too. That night, at 2:40, I woke again. The closet doors were fully open. A damp smell filled the room. Not like wet tatami, but like stagnant water. Like the air behind a shrine, near an old pond that hasn't moved in years. Then I heard it. A soft dragging sound against tatami. SHFF, SHFF. As if something was pulling itself forward. I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, I told myself. My eyes were fixed on the dark interior. For a moment, I thought I saw something pale shift within it. The next morning, I went to the elderly neighbor's door. I explained everything, feeling ridiculous as I spoke. She listened quietly. "This area used to be wetlands," she said at last. "After the war, they filled it in. I heard they found an old well under this building when they first built it." "A well." "There are things," she added softly, "that don't like being sealed." She told me about a small Inari shrine 10 minutes away. Hardly anyone visits it now. I went that afternoon and bought a protective charm. I placed it inside the closet. After that, the dragging sound stopped. But I still wake up at 2:40. Recently, I noticed something new. Each morning, faint marks on the tatami. Thin trails of moisture leading from the closet to the side of my futon. As if something crawled close to me and then turned back. Yesterday, the real estate agent called. The building will be demolished next month, he said. A ground survey found some structural issues. I asked what kind. He hesitated. There's an old well directly beneath your unit. After we hung up, I stared at the closet. The doors are closed now, but from the gap, I can feel a current of cool, damp air. I checked the time a few minutes ago. 2:39 a.m. I haven't woken up yet tonight. It just turned 2:40. From inside the closet, I can hear slow, steady breathing. It sounds closer than before. I'm a fourth-year university student in Saitama, but I grew up in a small coastal town in Shizuoka Prefecture. Population barely 8,000. One train line, one high school, 3 convenience stores. The kind of place where everyone knows which family your grandparents came from. I went back home this winter during job hunting break. My parents' house is old, built in the late Showa era. 2 floors, traditional layout. Tatami rooms upstairs, a Butsudan Buddhist altar in the downstairs washitsu. My grandmother used to take care of it every morning, offering rice and water. After she passed away 3 years ago, my mother kept up the routine. The first night back, I slept in my old room upstairs. Around midnight, I heard the sound of someone running water. Not the bathroom tap. It was slower, like water being poured steadily into a bowl. I assumed my mother was in the kitchen, but when I checked my phone, it was 1:17 a.m. The house was completely silent otherwise. I went downstairs. The kitchen was dark.
The sink was dry.
But the sound was clearer now. It was coming from the washitsu, the room with the butsudan. The sliding shoji door was slightly open. A thin line of light from the street lamp outside cut across the tatami, and I could hear it distinctly. Water being poured. I stepped closer and slid the door open. The room was empty, but on the floor in front of the altar, the small porcelain bowl my grandmother used for water offerings was filled to the brim. It hadn't been there earlier. I'm sure of it. I saw the altar when I came home. The bowl was empty and turned upside down to dry. I stood there for a long time listening. Nothing. The next morning, I asked my mother if she had refilled the offering water during the night. She looked confused.
No.
I always do it after breakfast. When I told her what happened, she became quiet. Then she said, "Don't go into that room at night." I laughed it off, but she didn't. That evening, I noticed something else. On the family calendar hanging in the kitchen, one date had been circled in red pen. February 7th. That was 3 days away. I asked my father why it was circled. He frowned. It isn't, but it clearly was. A thin red circle, slightly shaky, like it was drawn slowly. When I pointed at it, he went silent. "That's the day your grandmother died," he said eventually. "We don't mark it." That night, I stayed up deliberately. At 1:16 a.m., the house felt heavier somehow. The air thick, like before a typhoon. At exactly 1:17, the sound began again. Water pouring. This time, I didn't go downstairs immediately. I waited. After about 30 seconds, the sound stopped. Then came something else. A soft wooden creak. Our stairs are old. They make a specific sound when someone steps on the 3rd plank from the top. I heard that sound.
Once.
Then the 5th step. Slowly, deliberately. As if someone were climbing up. My parents' bedroom is downstairs. There should have been no one on the stairs. The steps continued. Measured. Patient. They stopped right outside my door. I couldn't breathe. There was no knock. Just silence. Then very gently my doorknob turned. It didn't rattle. It turned slowly, like a careful guest trying not to wake someone. But I had locked it. The handle turned all the way down.
And stopped.
After what felt like minutes, it returned to its original position. The footsteps retreated down the hall, then down the stairs. The next morning, I checked the washitsu again. The water bowl was full, overflowing slightly onto the tatami. The tatami around it was darkened with moisture. I asked my mother directly, "Did Grandma ever do anything at a specific time? Like 1:17? She stared at the table. When she was in the hospital, she said quietly, she kept asking for water.
Her throat was dry.
But the doctors restricted her intake. She passed at 1:17 in the morning.
I didn't know that.
February 7th came. That night, I decided to empty the water bowl before going to bed. I dried it completely and placed it upside down. At 1:17 a.m., the pouring sound began again. But this time, it was louder. Not a bowl. Something bigger. Like water spilling directly onto tatami. I forced myself to go downstairs. The washitsu door was wide open. The floor in front of the altar was soaked. Water spread across the tatami in a wide, uneven shape. In the center of it, kneeling before the butsudan, was a dark silhouette. Not solid. More like a density in the air, vaguely human. Its head was bowed. I couldn't see a face, but I could hear swallowing. Slow, desperate gulps. As if someone who had been thirsty for a very long time was finally drinking. I couldn't move. After a few seconds or minutes, it stopped. The silhouette thinned and was gone.
The tatami was dry.
Completely dry. The bowl sat upside down, untouched. My parents say I must have been dreaming, but they've started refilling the offering water before going to bed now. I went back to Saitama last week. Last night in my apartment, at exactly 1:17 a.m., I heard it again. Not from the kitchen. From my closet. The sound of water being poured into a bowl. I don't have a butsudan here, and I've never offered her water. But when I opened my eyes, I realized something. On my desk, beside my bed, was a glass I don't remember filling.
Clear. Cold.
Full to the brim. I work as a contract employee for a railway maintenance company in Tokyo. Not JR directly, but one of the subcontractors that handles inspections on lesser-use lines. Mostly rural stretches, small unmanned stations, that kind of thing. Last month, I was assigned to do a late-night inspection at an abandoned station in western Tokyo. It used to serve a small community, but after a landslide damaged part of the track years ago, the line was rerouted. The station building still stands, though. They keep it locked, but structurally it has to be checked once a year. The name of the station doesn't matter. It's not on current maps anymore. I went alone. That's normal for minor inspections. It was early November. Cold enough to see your breath. The last operational train on the active line had passed hours earlier, and the forest around the old station was completely silent. The building was small, one platform, a wooden waiting room with cracked windows, an old ticket window covered by a metal shutter. The station sign was faded, the hiragana barely legible. I unlocked the door and went inside. The air smelled like dust and wet leaves. My job was simple: check for structural damage, signs of trespassing, anything that could pose a liability. I took photos, filled out forms on my tablet. That's when I noticed the timetable board. It was one of those old metal boards with slots for printed cards. Obviously outdated. The last printed schedule was from over 10 years ago. Except one slot wasn't empty. At the very bottom, under all the old departure times, there was a single white card. No train number. No destination. Just a time. 2:12. I assumed it was some leftover scrap. Maybe kids had broken in and messed around. I removed the card and put it in my bag, intending to throw it away later. While checking the platform edge, I felt something strange. A vibration. Not from my phone. Not from any machinery. It was coming from the rails. A faint metallic hum, like distant electricity. I checked my watch. 2:09 a.m. There were no scheduled trains anywhere near that branch at this hour. I confirmed earlier. Still, the hum grew stronger. By 2:11, I could clearly hear it. The sound of a train approaching. Not loud. Not the heavy rumble of a modern commuter train. This was lighter. Older. The rhythmic clacking of wheels over joints in the rail. But the track past the station is disconnected. It leads into forest and stops. I stepped back from the platform edge. The forest ahead was pitch black.
No headlights.
No visible movement. At exactly 2:12, the sound stopped. Dead silence. The rails stopped vibrating instantly. I stood there for a long time. Nothing came. No train passed through.
No lights.
No wind. Just the cold. I told myself it was thermal contraction in the metal. Temperature drops can cause strange noises. I finished the inspection quickly after that. As I locked up the waiting room, I glanced inside one last time. The timetable board was visible through the cracked window, and the white card was back in its slot. 2:12. I know I removed it. It was in my jacket pocket. My chest felt tight. I didn't go back inside. When I got into my work van, I reached into my pocket. The card was still there. Same white card. Same printed numbers. There were now two. I reported none of this to my supervisor. I just submitted the structural photos and marked everything as no irregularities. I was assigned to revisit the site 1 week later. Routine follow-up. I considered calling in sick, but I went. This time, I arrived earlier, around 1:30 a.m. I told myself that if I was already there before 2:12, I could prove to myself it was nothing. The waiting room felt colder than before. The timetable board had only one white card. 2:12. At 2:10, the rails began to hum again. Stronger than last time. At 2:11, I heard it clearly. A train approaching from the forest side. I stepped out onto the platform. This time, there was a light. Faint at first, then growing brighter between the trees. An old-style headlamp. Yellow, not LED white. The sound was wrong. It wasn't synchronized with the disconnected track ahead. It was as if the train were traveling on rails that no longer existed. At 2:12 exactly, it emerged. A single-car train. Showa-era design. Rectangular windows.
Dim interior lights.
It slowed as it reached the platform.
And stopped.
The doors did not open. Through the windows, I could see silhouettes. Passengers. All seated. Completely still. Their heads tilted slightly downward, as if asleep. The conductor's window was dark. No movement. No sound of doors. Just the faint electrical hum. I couldn't see faces clearly, but something was wrong with their posture. Too straight. Too rigid. After what felt like a full minute, the train began moving again. Slowly at first. Then it passed me. As the last window slid by, I caught a glimpse of a face close to the glass.
Pale.
Eyes open. Looking directly at me. Not blinking. The train continued past the end of the platform. Into the forest. There are no tracks there. It didn't crash. It didn't derail. It simply kept going. And then the light was gone. The sound faded. Silence. When I went back inside, my hands were shaking. On the timetable board, there were now two white cards. 2:12. 2:12. The next morning, I did something I shouldn't have. I searched old archives. Newspaper records from decades ago. I found an article from 1974. A late-night local train had been reported missing on that branch line during heavy rain. Landslide damage complicated the search. Officially, it was listed as a derailment with casualties. But the article mentioned something strange. The final confirmed timetable entry before the incident was 2:12 a.m. The station name matched. I haven't been assigned back there. But last night, while on a completely different line, fully operational, crowded, normal, I checked the digital departure board out of habit. For a second, between two legitimate listings, the screen flickered. And I saw it. No destination. No train number. 2:12. It disappeared immediately. No one else seemed to notice. I checked the time. 2:11 a.m. I got off at the next station. I don't take late trains anymore. But sometimes, when I stand near the platform edge, I feel that faint vibration in the rails. Like something is approaching on a schedule that was never canceled.